The year is 2015. Barack Obama is still the President of the United States, Queen Elizabeth has just become the longest reigning monarch ever, but most importantly, an anonymous Austrian scientist has just had the misfortune of meeting Antonio Giovinazzi's crackhead cousin, William Story. Together they would go on to form a business which had, by 2016, earned them a total profit of £103. No, not 103 million, not 103,000, just 103 Great British Pounds. If you don't already know which company I'm talking about, then clearly you didn't see the title of this video. So sit back, grab yourself a criminally overpriced soft drink with something about energy written on the front, and let me tell you all a William story. Because believe me, after you've consumed the almost 100 milligrams of caffeine in that shit, you're gonna need all the help you can get to go to sleep. So without any more jokes that I stole from my dad, let me try to tell you why Rich Energy failed. Oh boy. This will be a long one. So as I've already mentioned, Rich Energy had just £103 to their name in 2016, which then rose to £571 in 2017. Granted, they were only founded 2 years prior, but if they were really serious about being #better than Red Bull, then they should have at least had 5-figure numbers in the bank by the first year. But it's alright, because Homeless Jesus over here says that nowadays they never have under 8 figures in their bank account, which was conveniently absent when the time came to file their taxes. So they're either committing major tax fraud, or William Story's just hiding all that money in his beard, along with this morning's cornflakes and a little bit of pizza from last night. Even if we ignore the questionable situation with their bank account, there was never really anything that showed Rich Energy to be a trustworthy brand, right from the second they stepped into the F1 spotlight. Whether it be because of the apparent lack of any physical products, or lack of place to make the physical product in, it was never easy for people to get their hands on some. As I said in a previous video about the company, they might be intentionally trying to make themselves into this kind of unicorn brand in a stunt to try and increase sales, but even so, it was often so difficult for people to get their hands on the stuff that they just gave up, meaning no sales at all for Mr. Story. And guess what? If you ain't selling any product, then you ain't gonna be making any money. So that begs the question, where did all that money they promised Haas come from? And more importantly, where did it go? As for where it came from, I can at least tell you that it wasn't from the actual brand. You'll find out later where it actually came from, but it's unlikely it was from selling 90 million cans of watered down Red Bull, don't you think? That said, it's unlikely that we'll ever know how much of that sponsorship money was earned by Rich Energy, seeing as William Story is about as trustworthy as that guy who came to fix your gutter but had conveniently forgotten to bring any proof of ID. So with the brand not being funded by its own money, it's hardly a surprise that they were able to pour millions into sponsoring motorsport teams even without having a product to profit off. But the question is, why bother? Like, if you're gonna stir up controversy with your brand, then at least try and make some money off it. If you're gonna have millions of people trying to buy your product just to prove it's real, then surely the best move would be to make some actual products in that £50 million factory of yours? Oh yeah, about that. This factory, also conveniently absent on their financial reports, was supposedly a cutting-edge facility where they make the cans. Yes. Just the cans, before they shipped off to Austria to be filled with Red Bull and watered down to the point that they're about as tasteless as the orange squash they served at birthday parties when I was 5. Of course, I'm willing to be proved wrong if anyone can show me the factory, but right now it's pretty unlikely in my mind that the place even exists. When I searched out Rich Energy's and Lightning Volt's names on Google Maps, I got some random bloke's house and a bunch of Argos warehouses. Lightning Volt, by the way, is one of Rich Energy's alter egos, for those of you that weren't already aware. That said, there's now some fairly decent evidence that the factory exists, as since March 2020, it's been possible to buy crates of Rich Energy from their website, along with what can only be described as Rich Energy merch. With that in mind, I think one of the big problems here is that by the time they've been able to produce some form of physical products, everyone had lost interest in the brand, as they'd left F1 almost 8 months previously. Of course, that didn't stop idiots like me buying the stuff, but it just seemed a bit silly in my opinion. So with that little rant over, let's actually dissect this and see where everything started to go wrong, shall we? First of all, the money situation was appalling. They claimed to have money which it turned out they didn't, refused to cough up when they promised to with Haas, they were funded by money which wasn't actually from selling the product, and most importantly, they claimed to have a factory which they blatantly didn't. Compared to Red Bull, who are very financially secure, to the point that almost the whole world recognizes them as the energy drink and that they can sponsor basically any sport without people raising any questions, Rich Energy was a complete shambles. Nobody had heard of them when they first stepped into the F1 spotlight, so naturally that prompted people to question the product's existence and wonder where all that money came from. That'd be fine if there actually was any money, but obviously there wasn't. I know as little as you do with regards to what happened between Rich Energy and Haas, but from what I can gather, they paid the initial payment to become a title sponsor, but then didn't pay a penny more. No doubt there's more financial issues within the company, but those are all the ones which are confirmed to be true. And frankly, I don't want to be on the receiving end of one of William Story's hissy fits by spreading stuff that isn't true. So let's move swiftly on to the next reason why Rich Energy failed. That fateful sponsorship with Haas. Need I say any more? No, I don't, because I can't be bothered. So I've got a good friend of mine to tell you all about it, so allow me to introduce Daniel Roos.
So with Rich Energy's Formula 1 or bust goal they set themselves, it first looked like they were going to sponsor Williams. Story had actually arranged to meet Claire Williams for dinner at the US Grand Prix, but being the absolute chad that he is, old William didn't bother to show up to the dinner, so that goal of sponsoring Williams went out of the window faster than Nikita Mazepin's career. So instead, Rich Energy decided they wanted to sponsor Haas, and this time they were actually successful, because Bad Santa here managed to convince Günther to sign the contract. So for the 2019 season, Rich Energy would be the title sponsor of the Haas F1 team. And here's where it all kicked off. This immediately caused some controversy over whether they were actually a legitimate brand, since you couldn't buy it anywhere and the company had less money in the bank than the average teenager. But no, Rich Energy was 100% real and produced over 90 million cans, which means they either all ended up in landfill or that was just horse manure. Throughout the season, things looked a bit shady with the brand, since the drink was out of stock everywhere, and since you could only buy it on eBay, it made you wonder where Rich Energy actually got the money from. And as I have recently discovered, the money came from Story's dodgy dealings with a tobacco farm in Zimbabwe. Yes, really. Haas were needing this money, but in the season it began to expose that Story wasn't paying Haas what he owed them, meaning that he's basically turning the sponsorship into free advertising for his brand, which is definitely legal. So since they weren't paying Haas weren't particularly happy about this, and they also weren't particularly happy about the ridiculous things going on Rich Energy's Twitter. So unsurprisingly, Rich Energy then left the Haas F1 team mid-season. Sad, but not surprised.
If you aren't already subscribed to Daniel, I'll leave a link to his channel in a pinned comment and in the description. Anyway, moving on, let's get to the final reason why Rich Energy failed, and that is the leadership. Red Bull is led by a business mastermind with a net worth of almost $27 billion, whereas Rich Energy is led by the kind of person who looks like he'd ask you for a lighter as you walk past him in the street and then run off with it when you give him one. Obviously, what someone looks like doesn't dictate how they actually act, but sadly William Story played the part as well. While he wasn't exactly stealing things from people, he was still conning people out of their money, namely the Haas F1 team. Daniel has already spoken about the way that the sponsorship deal with Haas played out, so now it's my turn to complain again. After Homeless Jesus ended the sponsorship deal with Haas over Twitter, following in the footsteps of Donald Trump in his bid to get banned from the platform, his own company weren't all that happy with him. Instead of just talking it out like any other business, they too made a snap decision. This time to fire their own CEO and founder and then go off and do whatever they plan to do. I really want to be able to tell you more, but from here on in it just gets so confusing I can't really explain it. The things I can figure out, however, are that Rich Energy is now owned by a company called Lightning Volt. Although Lightning Volt is just Rich Energy's alternate identity thanks to Captain Story taking the rights for Rich Energy on his way. Oh, and on the subject of rights, remember that logo that they used to have? Well, that wasn't actually their logo. It was technically the property of White Bikes, who probably weren't all that happy about being associated with such a bunch of fucking vancors. After a few months of arguing, Story and Rich Energy Lightning Volt got back together, meaning that Rich Energy's brand no longer existed, but the company was still selling a product called Rich Energy. You see what I mean now? This is bloody confusing. Long story short, Rich Energy is no longer the name of the brand, but it is still the name of the product, in the same way that Coca-Cola isn't made by a brand called Diet Coke, but sells a product called Diet Coke. Does that make sense? No? Okay, never mind. So as I've already mentioned, Rich Energy is now a real thing, and you can buy it for yourself from their website apparently, and with this news comes some slightly less great news. At least for one team on the grid. Rich Energy are coming back. Okay, so that's not technically been proved to be true yet, but hey, it makes for a nice bit of drama in the video, and that's the most important thing, eh? In a caption of one of Rich Energy's many strange posts on Instagram, they said this: "This car looked good but was a bit slow. We can't wait until we unveil the new one. Hashtag Rich Energy, hashtag F1, hashtag Motorsport, etc, etc, etc. Obviously it's not going to be Haas, as 1, they're probably still suffering from PTSD, and 2, Nikita Mazepin. I'm not saying that Rich Energy wouldn't stoop so low as to sponsor a car driven by Nikita Mazepin, because of course they would, but it's pretty easy to see that Haas no longer need the money that Rich Energy probably wouldn't give them anyway. Not to mention they've been publicly slating Haas since July 2019, so I think that's probably a relationship beyond repair now. So if not Haas, then who? Well, Sauber already have a title sponsor in Alfa Romeo, Williams have Safina, Aston Martin have Cognizant, Ferrari have Mission Winnow, Mercedes have Petronas, Red Bull have Red Bull, AlphaTauri have AlphaTauri, Alpine have DP World, and McLaren... Oh, for fuck. Of course, if Rich Energy are now a legitimate brand, then whoever they sponsor, if anyone, isn't going to go through the same thing that Haas did, but even so, they don't seem like the kind of brand that you'd want to work with. Okay, well, it's time to answer the main question of this video. Why did Rich Energy fail? Well, It'd be quicker to list the stuff they did right, to be honest. And more importantly, to all the people who think that Red Bull is too strong and prefer it when it's mixed with water and extra E numbers, there's still hope for Rich Energy. If they can get their act together with actually being a sponsor of an F1 team and not just some random words written on the side of the car that lead people to some bearded version of Antonio Giovinazzi. Actually, that's a bit harsh on Antonio Giovinazzi, isn't it? But yeah, if they remain as a sponsor for long enough for people to be interested for the right reasons, and maybe even put their products in normal supermarkets, then maybe they could one day be better than Red Bull. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it, and once again a massive thank you to Dan for coming on. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that stuff, and I'll see you all later.